We are in a fight for our lives, and you can help. My husband, Joel, and I, we met over 20 years ago. I was actually working at a local paper here in South Florida. And I lived in Hollywood, and I was divorced, and I had 2 small boys. My publisher had come to me and said, look, you're single, you're not dating that I know of, and you should put an ad in our paper, because we had a back section called the romance section. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But she insisted, and I did. Joel, who was living in Boca and he owns a restaurant there, was working and having a particularly bad day. He was also going through a pretty horrific divorce. And he walked out and just had to take a break, and he went around and went to this other restaurant and decided to have lunch there, and he saw this paper, which he had never seen before, never looked at before. And he picked it up, and he found my ad, and he called me. And we talked, and we talked more. In fact, we talked for almost 3 months before we finally met. We had just connected on so many levels. He had 2 small children. He was going through a horrible divorce. I had 2 children, had already gone through a horrible divorce. And we kind of found each other, but it took us a long time to meet. And when we finally did meet, we met at a restaurant, and I decided to be a few minutes late because I don't want to be there before him. And he was sitting there, and when I walked in, he looked at me and he smiled, and I was like, oh my goodness, this could be the one. Anyway, that was over 20 years ago, and we have been through children, and our children are wonderful, and we have grandchildren now. We've had bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and weddings. We are just wonderful together. We really are each other's other half. He's really nice and really lovable, and he's just so good and kind and smart and handsome. And anyway, we have had a wonderful life together.
I remember when Sherry and I started talking on the phone, and over a period of weeks and weeks that we talked, and she just struck me as being really smart and funny and independent. And the more I got to know her, the more that just sort of was reinforced in our discussions. You know, for me, it was like, you know, this woman's really got it together. It was a little bit intimidating. She was quite the powerful young lady. And we started dating, and it was coming up on her 40th birthday, and we were still a new couple, and I think she hesitantly invited me to her 40th birthday, which was going to be a roast by her friends, and I think she was concerned about what her friends were going to say. So I went and I sort of sat on the outskirts of what was going on, and I watched person after person after person just go up and talk about how much they loved her and how great she is and the things that she had done for them and how she had impacted them. And I remember at that time just sitting there and being like, wow, this woman's for real. All the things that I thought she was. She had 50 people walk up there and start saying this stuff. And I don't think I know 50 people. And these people were talking about how great she is. And I remember as we were dating and continued dating, one day we were walking along, and there was an older couple in front of us, probably in their 80s, and you know, an old man and his wife, and they're sort of tootling along, holding hands, and all of a sudden they stop, and he leans over and he gives her a kiss, and I said to Sherry, I'm like, I want that to be us.
I want it to be us too. Joel started not feeling well. He said, he felt like there was something wrong in his body, like something just didn't feel right. So he made an appointment with a neurologist, and he went to see him, and I came home after him, and he was sitting in the kitchen, and he said, well, the appointment didn't go very well. The doctor said, I have ALS.
I was stunned, obviously. It's life-altering and mind-blowing, and the doctor was really offhanded, basically like, I'm not sure. He goes, you know what ALS is? And I said, yeah, it's sort of like Parkinson's, but you die, right? He goes, yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm not a betting man, but I think you got it. And I just gathered myself up and walked out and was stunned beyond belief. It wasn't so much it was the diagnosis at first, but the thought of how do I tell Sherry what I just learned, and how do I tell my two children, my daughter who just got married, my son who's in college doing exams, and I can't blow them up like this. What do I do?
Well, when I came home and he told me that, I was like, this can't be. It can't be ALS. And that's just, I know Lou Gehrig's disease. I know Stephen Hawking. I did the ice bucket challenge. Couldn't even imagine this. But so we said, no, we're going to go see some more doctors. And so we made appointments. We made another neurologist appointment, and finally the fourth one, we were at the ALS clinic at University of Miami, and they said, we're sorry, but this is the diagnosis. This is what it is. But we're going to help you. we're going to put a team together to support you. So we're like, okay. And so we met with this team who also were like, this is a terrible disease, it's devastating, we understand how you feel, and your husband's going to, soon probably lose his hands, the ability to dress himself and all these things. These are things that we actually are having issues with now, but they said, but we can help. We're going to send you to a website, and that website you can buy things that'll make it easier.
It was crazy. I thought Sherry was going to climb over the desk and knock the doctor out.
I just couldn't stand it. I got up, I ran out. I just got hysterical. I went out, and finally Joel came after, and we just got in the car and we drove home, and we were just in silence. We were so stunned. It was, I don't wish it on anybody.
ALS is a disease where basically your nerves keep firing off until they basically die, and then your muscles atrophy and they die. And you lose the ability to use your arms and your legs. Sherry had to button my shirt for me today. I can't use my hands. You lose the ability to speak, to eat, and then in the end game you lose the ability to breathe. It's not really the pain. I get cramps all the time in my arms and my legs and my back and my fingers. It's the thought that I'm not going to be able to get up and walk across the room and give her a kiss or hug her or hold her hands or tell her that I love her. I'm just going to be, what they're telling me is that, most people wind up having that end outcome, and that's not something that I'm willing to accept. And I've always been a fighter. My parents raised me to be a fighter. My mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when she was pregnant with me, and they told her to quit teaching. She was a teacher her whole life, and she didn't quit teaching. When I was 14, they told her she had 6 months to live, that she had breast cancer, and she had 6 months to live, and she should quit teaching. She didn't quit teaching. And her 6 months turned into 3 years. And she died a couple weeks after my 17th birthday. And I remember my dad coming downstairs and sitting on my bed. My brothers were off in college, on the night that she died, and he's like, it's just you and me now, buddy, and we gotta take care of ourselves. And my dad, he was a fighter. He was brought up in Nazi Germany. His mother put him on the second to last kinder transport to London. Here was a little kid who didn't know any English, was going to a foreign land where he didn't know anyone, didn't know whether he'd see his mother or father again or his older brother again. And, he sucked it up and went from there, came to the U.S. and joined the Army and wound up liberating Stuttgart as a U.S. soldier where he was born and seeing where, unfortunately, most of his family didn't make it out.
So we had to fight. We knew we had to fight. We had to figure out something, and it was going to be outside of Western medicine because, as I said, they offer us nothing. So I started reading and researching and talking to people, and we actually found that there have been people who have beat ALS that were diagnosed with it, and then the two things that we found that was in common with these people were they had an attitude that they were going to beat this, and they were going to look for alternatives to help them do it. And so that's what we're doing, and we found what we know. We found hope. We absolutely found hope, and we believe we can beat this. And we found this lady. Her name is Amy, and she has a clinic in Miami called Body Science, and we started going there in January. And she's been treating Joel, as well as many other ALS patients, and we've seen some amazing things.
The treatments are really painful. The beginning is they take your vitals and then they hook you up to an IV bag with vitamins and minerals and amino acids and stuff, and then they bring you into the treatment room, and the treatment room is where you get your shots, and they go over with you what hurts, where are all the vesiculations, and vesiculations is the medical word for the muscle tremors that ALS patients get. I have them in my arms and my legs and my back and everywhere, and so at any given day I'll get 20 to 50 individual shots, whether it's in my arm or my back, whatever. Amy does not claim to cure ALS. She's not curing ALS. What she's doing is she's keeping the muscles alive, because these shots of amino acids and peptides are just muscle food. And when we ran out of money in June and I stopped going, I lost the use of my arm again. We've luckily been able to start up a little bit, and I'm regaining some of my strength. But it's science. This isn't pie in the sky stuff. I've seen people who can't hold their neck up, can't hold their head up, and their neck is just down. And after a couple weeks with her, they're able to move their head and their neck. And a woman who had to use a computer to speak because she was tied into the wheelchair, and it was able to communicate with her husband again, albeit in garbled verbiage, but she's able to start again. It is working. It's real stuff, and I absolutely feel different when I go there.
When he comes home from one of those treatments, I go with him often, but whether I go with him or not, thank God he can still drive. But when he comes home, he sleeps. I mean, it's painful, it's brutal, it's horrible, but you know what? When he gets up, he's okay. His hands are working again. He's able to do the things he wants to do and needs to do, cutting his food, dressing. But when he doesn't have the treatment, it goes away. So we need to maintain it, and it's expensive, but it works. And like I said, we've been doing this since January, and it's been really helping him, and we need to continue it. But we lay in bed at night, and I sit there, and he's next to me, and I imagine, God forbid, he's not. This could take him, they say it's 3 to 5 years, and Joel was diagnosed about a year ago We have children and grandchildren who would miss him terribly. I couldn't imagine him not being here for all of us. He has students. He's a professor at the Chaplin School at FIU in Miami, and he's such an amazing man, and we need to keep him. These are working. They're working. This consumes us. This is everyday life, all day long, 24/7, but it's okay because we're fighting it, and we found this hope.
Yeah, I've always, I guess, been sort of a slow starter. I've been in the restaurant industry my whole life, and that was really great and amazing, and I met great people, and it wasn't until about 10 years ago when I was invited to speak at the Chaplin School at FIU to some students there, and that speaking engagement led to an adjunct position, which led to a full-time position. I can't tell you the feeling that I get when I'll have students now who will send me an email, "Hey, professor, I was in your class 5 years ago or 7 years ago, and I thought you were amazing, and I've now decided to open a restaurant or a club or whatever, and would you be willing to take a look at my business plan, or would you come speak to me and let me run some questions by you?" And that's just such an amazing feeling, that to be able to impact 200-300 kids a year. The Chaplin School's been amazing, the administration, the other faculty, and to be a part of that organization. I want to continue to make that kind of impact, but on top of that, the grandkids, our children, but really I think more than anything, promised Sherry that we'd be that 85-year-old couple, and I want to be that couple that walks off into the sunset.
It's really hard for us to do this. We're both professionals. We've helped people before, but this time we need help. We really need a lot of help. This is a big financial burden, and we're asking for help.
I know this is saving my life. I know these treatments are working because I can feel it. I can feel when I'm strong, and I can feel when I'm not. I see it amongst the other people at the clinic. I need this to make it through to the end. I need to be strong enough that I have muscles left when the cure is found. We research a lot, and there's stuff going on everywhere, and it's just, I gotta be alive long enough to get that cure. And I know that Amy can keep me going, and I can't ask strongly enough, please, this stuff isn't covered by insurance. This is experimental treatment, and they say, well, ALS isn't treatable, so you're on your own. And that's why we're asking for help. I implore you, if you can, please help us.
We need your help. Please help us. We can't lose him. Please help us in any way you can. Every little bit helps. Big stuff helps too.
Thank you.